do. And Kip's, continued on doing films. He's got, I think, 4 films in the works right now as well. So even though we're not working together as intimately as we did with COWSPIRACY and What the Health, we're both still producing films and still supporting each other. And I think to be honest, it's for the best because we're producing twice as many films now.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, you're both like kind of in the same direction, still ongoing, and if anything, you're even stronger in this sense, Yeah, because I think Running for Good was amazing. Like, in my opinion, it really is, just the best you did, because I love COWSPIRACY, I love What the Health. I think these movies are so important and so good, but there was something just incredibly amazing about Fiona. I'm just blown away by her. I think she's just a powerhouse of a woman, and for you captured it so well, who she is and just her drive. And she's unstoppable. Like, it was such a great movie. Because also, this is another thing I wanted you to talk about, is like, you also, sometimes it's really hard to film, right? Because sometimes you're in very hard conditions that make you sick, or like you were in the desert, like getting pretty ill, right, at that time of making that movie.
Yeah, so Running for Good follows Fiona as she runs Marathon des Sables, which is considered the toughest foot race on earth. It's 156 miles through the Sahara Desert. Right. And I went and filmed with her, and so I'm running alongside her for almost half the race, carrying gear and trying to keep up. And it made for beautiful, like, visually. I'm really proud of that film. It didn't have the reach and success as COWSPIRACY or What the Health, which is understandable. It's more of a niche film. It's a sports documentary, but it's about this. Why is she pushing herself to run these extreme races? But yeah, it was really hard and really hot, and I ended up getting horribly sick in Africa. Ended up with a severe respiratory infection. Almost died in South Africa, and then I showed up at your Miguel's house a week later, still pretty sick. So
yeah, I think
I don't know if you remember me coughing my lungs up.
I do remember that. Yeah, I do remember that. And even like before you came here, I was like, oh my god, this is what's happening to Keegan. I was like, oh no, because I also think, like, a lot of people think, oh, Keegan, or what you do, and they kind of romanticize your life because you're this cool filmmaker, and oh my god, Netflix is showing your works and stuff, but it is freaking hard work, and putting yourself in certain conditions that are dangerous and really harsh, So I think that that's also a very big part of what you do, isn't it? Like,
well, thanks. Yeah, it is. A lot of times we are doing things as, especially if you're doing investigative films, you are putting yourself in hard places. And even if they're not like physically dangerous, they're emotionally really hard. Like making COWSPIRACY, there was a certain level of physical danger that we're facing by, exposing this industry. But emotionally, it was really tough because we're investigating how this destruction is to the planet. And I found myself being really, there's a little,
my co-host is my co-host is talking.
But yeah, so there's an emotional element too, and so like this current film, Hungry for Justice, that I'm doing about food justice has a certain element that is physically dangerous, but emotionally it's really, really challenging because you're looking at suffering. A couple of weeks ago, we were in Navajo Nation, which is one of the largest indigenous reservations in the United States, and we're interviewing Gloria Ambigay, who's a food sovereignty activist there, and you see the reality of what indigenous people in the American Southwest are dealing with. Some of the highest rates of diabetes in the world, of heart disease, of cancer, and these are people who haven't struggled with those things before. And so the emotional elements are really, really challenging, and that's a big part of, I think, making these films, is being prepared for that.
And how do you prepare yourself, like, for that? Like, do you have any?
It's all, for me, it's always thinking about where is the good I can do. It's really easy to get overwhelmed with like, hey, the situation is hopeless. And I think a lot of situations are truly hopeless, but it's where can we make an impact today? Where can we help someone? Where can we minimize suffering? And so that's where I always focus on, is acknowledging and realizing things are going to be tough. And then perspective too, is that seeing other people suffer is hard, but you're not suffering the way they are. And so it's always that perspective where it's, as bad as I might feel for myself, I'm like, hey, I'm not living in that. I'm not dealing with that. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's and then when you come back from making these kind of movies, is there anything that makes you like? Do you do things to make you feel good again, or like what do you do to take a break from the harsh stuff that you've seen?
I've started mountain biking again, so that's
good.
kind of my out. Being outside, reconnecting with nature as much as possible.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate to live in a beautiful place where I can walk out my door and there's literally 100 trails right there.
Wow.
So that's one of the reasons why I moved here is for that, as like emotional support and healing and self-care and all that soft, gooey stuff. But it's important.
It's very important, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you want to continue, especially as activists, if you want to, burnout is so real. And it's like, I've seen so many people, they push so hard and they burn out. And I'm on the verge of burnout constantly. Yeah. And so it's really important to, take care of yourself because and the first rule of first aid is don't create a second victim. So if you can't help someone else if you're hurting yourself. Yeah, no,
I think that's a really good thing I'm really glad you brought this up because at the moment I'm touring and I'm going to lots of different places and I talk about, veganism and teach yoga and also do these talks about animal rights activism. And I always say that, there are so many animal rights, suicidal and depressed and I've lost friends to suicide because it is such a hard thing we've seen. I've seen horrible stuff too, and it is so important that, that you also acknowledge that there is burnout, we all have our boundaries, there's always going to be a time where you kind of also need to have that mountain bike ride to, so you can keep making the amazing work that you do. So I'm glad that you have something that gives you that, because it's so important, I think.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that.
And do you how do you feel about the fact that that COWSPIRACY is still such a huge, do you sometimes feel like, oh, I'm always going to be, COWSPIRACY Keegan when you also have all the new work coming? How do you kind of balance that for you?
Yeah. That's interesting. I am super fortunate and super grateful that COWSPIRACY continues to be relevant. And actually, in some respects, I wish it wasn't relevant. I wish it was like a historical film, like, oh yeah, that's what we used to do to the planet and animals.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, last month I was giving a talk at a summit about the environmental impact of animal agriculture, and I'm very grateful that I'm still given those opportunities to talk about diet and impact on the planet, because I think that's at the core. If we don't have a planet to live on, what's the point of saving the animals? In some respects. So I'm very grateful that COWSPIRACY continues to be important and relevant in shaping people's lives. Sadly, when media started paying attention to the Amazon burning this past summer, there was a resurgence of interest in COWSPIRACY because we talk about that and how up to 91% of Brazilian Amazon destruction is for animal agriculture, and that these fires were because of grazing. It wasn't for any other reason than they want to raise animals for people to eat. So, I'm super grateful. I wish all of my films to do well. I really wanted Running for Good to be a huge success, mostly because I want Fiona to get the attention she deserves. Fiona is this incredible activist. She runs a sanctuary where she takes care of almost 500 animals every single day, and she runs 20 miles a day. So I want people to know her story so they'll support her work. Yeah. And then, of course, I want people to see what I think is a beautiful film. But again, I'm grateful for any attention that these films get because it's all for a message, Yeah, and
it has also created a lot for you, right? COWSPIRACY has also really created a path for you. So people also a lot of people who would have never even come across Keegan the vegan activist have seen you and your work now. So I think it also created a big path for you, I would say, that you're now still walking on.
Definitely. I'm very grateful.
Because how did veganism come into your life, Keegan? I know you're very passionate about that. And tell us.
So I was really fortunate to be raised vegetarian. So from birth, I've never eaten meat. And my mom raised us with two ideals, which was don't hurt anybody, which meant don't hurt your brother's body or sister's body or cow's body or a rat's body. Don't hurt anybody, and always question authority. And so it's like those are pretty radical ideas to raise kids with. And when I was like a, early preteen, I got into punk music and hardcore, and a friend turned me on to this band called Earth Crisis, which was super heavy metal hardcore. And they talked about radical sobriety in the form of straight edge and veganism, animal liberation. And I realized as a vegetarian, I thought I wasn't doing harm, but I realized because of this ban that the egg industry was extremely violent to both mother hens, taking their eggs and their babies from them, but also that they kill all the male chicks. And then all those mothers are also killed when they stop laying as many eggs. And the dairy industry, the same, taking babies from their mothers and killing those babies if they're male and killing the mothers once they stop producing as much milk. I realized I couldn't really live this like no harm ahimsa lifestyle if I was supporting those industries. And so the only logical step would be to go vegan, to abstain from supporting those industries in any way. And it did. It totally shaped my life. Hardcore punk music, as I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, is really influential because you can talk about radical ideas and influence kids and people in a way that most pop music doesn't. And so, that set me down this path of animal activism that I've been on for, 22 years now.
Wow.
So it's a lifestyle and a lifelong journey of just trying to minimize harm.
And do you miss making music?
I do, but I still make music. I had a hardcore band for a brief minute, and I'm still recording music, and I think about music all the time. But as far as a touring musician, there's parts of it I miss. I miss touring with one of my best friends, Miguel.
Yes,
and getting to see the world together.
Yeah, he misses that too. Believe me.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm super grateful that I've gotten the opportunities I've gotten. And again, this is all about how do I have the biggest impact possible. And so while music did have an impact, and I did get messages and talk to people who say, hey, I looked at population in a different way. I looked at sobriety in a different way because of your music. That reach was limited compared to the films. And so, maybe one day I'll go back to music in a more serious way. But for now, the films are filling that.
Yeah. And it's also, like you said, it's another gateway you're using to reach as many people as you possibly can. So I think that, and the music is always with you, isn't it? Like it's who you are. And, and it's also nice because you have recorded music that you can, people can still listen to, and you have that as well. Like that's always there, like the messages in your music. I think that's so amazing. And we have to I'll put a link in all the notes for this, so people can because people can, right? People can listen to your music, can't they? Yeah.
There's X True Nature X online and Bandcamp and Spotify and Google and anywhere you get music.
And all the other many ways of finding your music. And so at the moment you're saying you're working on 4 different projects. Yeah. And are they all gonna be out next year, or are you like, what are your?
So Hungry for Justice should be out in 2020. Another one, unfortunately, I can't talk about.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm sure there's like some secretive stuff going on.
There should be at least 2 coming out in 2020, and then 2021 and 2022, one and another. So it'll be it's a while coming. So what I'm trying to kind of transition to is doing more writing films and producing films versus directing, because right now I'm gone almost 2 weeks out of every month on the road filming, and that. I've been doing that for 8 years. 2 years ago I was gone for almost 6 months. 2019 I've been gone for almost 7 months. So it's a lot on the road. So I'm trying to transition, be home more.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a really good thing, I think, for you and your wife.
Yeah, that's it.
It's nice. It's nice because you can be on that mountain bike, and and if you have all that beautiful nature close to you, you need to be in it. Like it's of course I totally get that, because it's not just making a movie, right? You usually also promote. Like you were also here when What the Health was out, promoting it here in Portugal, and you were going to different places, and like that's also hard work, isn't it? Like it's not just
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard work in the sense of like putting a roof on